And welcome once again to Why Should We Care About the Indo-Pacific, brought to you by IEJ Media and sponsored by our friends at Bauer Group Asia. More about them in due course. I am Ray Powell, the former military officer. That over there is Jim Caruso. He is the former diplomat. One of the places that he diplomated once was in Thailand. And Jim, we have our first guest from Thailand.
It's about time, Ray.
It is.
Yeah, Thailand's a big, important country. And I think the reason we've avoided it is because it's a very complex place. But today we have someone who's going to clear it up. Dr. Thitinan Pongsudhirak is a professor at Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, professor of international relations. So, Dr. Thitinan, also known as Jay to his friends, welcome. Why should we care about the complexity of Thai politics?
You know, the rubric and the theme of your platform about the Indo-Pacific, why should you care? Why should your audience members care? The thing about the Indo-Pacific is that if you don't care about it, it'll care about you anyway. So I think that that's why you should care. For Thailand, I mean, it's a different creature, different benchmark. I mean, this is a country that's gone through a lot of turmoil, very topsy-turvy trajectory over the last 25 years. And I think some people have lost patience. Certainly, Thailand has suffered from instability, uncertainty, unpredictability, protests in the streets, 2 military coups in 2006, 2014, a number of judicial interventions. So a lot of political drama in this country of 70 million, predominantly Buddhist country in Southeast Asia, in mainland Southeast Asia. I think that, I'm a little bit biased. I'm in Thailand. I'm Thai. People should care. I mean, in the US or anywhere else in the world, first, they like Thailand. I think, first of all, whether they care or not, they like Thailand. We've had record high tourist visitors, all kinds of people come through Bangkok. So, to that extent, I think people generally around the world like Thailand. But to what extent should they care? For a country that's been so kind of broken, problematic, I think they have to care because Thailand is an indispensable piece of the jigsaw puzzle or the geostrategic canvas in the Indo-Pacific. So if you look at the map, the Pacific used to be the Asia-Pacific that we know about, hyphenated, and that's the US, North America, and the Pacific Rim, East Asia. And I used to lecture that, I used to give talks that the hyphen in the Asia-Pacific was about New Zealand. But the geostrategic paradigm now has shifted from the Asia-Pacific to the Indo-Pacific. And there's a lot of history about that. There's a lot of literature. The whole concept of the Indo-Pacific goes back to the 1920s, 30s, with the German geostrategist Karl Schauhofer. And on and on, Prime Minister Abe, Shinzo Abe, kind of revived it. And then President Trump in his first term kind of picked it up and ran with it, even though he didn't have much experience at that time. In 2017, he came to Vietnam and to Philippines. And after that, the Indo-Pacific was codified in the National Security Strategy and National Defense Strategy of the U.S. And after that, we have it as our main frame, our geostrategic framework for dealing with regional affairs. Now, for Thailand, is a founding member and birthplace of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. Thailand itself, not a huge country, but ranks in the top 25 most populous size of GDP. So it's a medium-sized kind of country that has been punching below its belt. But I'll come to this a little bit more. That is getting its act together partially now. But as a crux, as a gist, as a kind of a centrality of this ASEAN has almost 700 million population combined, and that's half the size of China. And it's a compelling region of different countries. And ASEAN is an organization of Southeast Asia. And the U.S. should care because this is the nexus of prosperity and insecurity in the Indo-Pacific. ASEAN is the main arena for U.S.-China competition and rivalry. ASEAN is a main vehicle for organizing the regions, for constructing the regional architecture for regional cooperation for peace and stability. And that includes the East Asia Summit, APEC, the ASEAN Regional Forum, the ADMM Plus, and so on. So that's why Thailand is indispensable in that sense, even though it has been problematic domestically.
Thank you so much, Jay. I'd really like to understand some of the things you've alluded to about getting its act together, this history of political instability. Can you help our audience, and frankly me, understand why that is? What is it about Thailand's political system, the role of the monarchy, the role of the courts, the role of the military? What is it about this system that has led to all of this instability with the military coups and the declaring of parties to be unconstitutional? And why is it that Thailand is in these sort of chaotic political times? It seems like all the time.
Yes. If you can think of it this way, I mean, any country would have a kind of an established system, right? Established rules, institutions, and how things work. For Thailand, for centuries, it was kind of an absolute monarchy, a kingdom. But that kingdom was transformed. I think it was overthrown and made into a kind of a constitutional monarchy, constitutionalism in 1932. So if you look at the political history of Thailand, it used to be called Siam until 1939. And it's really about the role of the monarchy in the political system. So from 1932 to roughly 1950s, they tried to make the monarchy integrated, accountable within the constitution. Before that, monarchy was absolute. So the king was the government leader, and his children and family were the government. And you can still have this in the Saudi Arabia or Brunei, countries with absolute monarchies. For Thailand, this changed, but then the monarchy, kind of came back, was revived, and kind of been able to construct a return to a quasi-absolute monarchy. So, you can look at Thailand back in the World War II, in the Cold War, for example. The people, the institutions that called the shots around here, it's not the Thai people. It's not the political parties like the Democratic Party, the Republican parties in the U.S., but it's the established institutions of the monarchy, the military, judiciary, and bureaucracy. And I actually think that they were set up. They came together and they rose to power during the Cold War with a lot of U.S. backing, in fact. So the Americans should know that the Cold War was instrumental in building up this established political system in Thailand. Now, years went by, the economy prospered, Thailand, people had more education and so on. And it culminated with another challenge, another pressure from below for the monarchy and the military to change, to accommodate popular voices for election, for the electorate, for democratization. And this came to a head in about 2001 with the rise of Thaksin Shinawatra. So the last 25 years has been a seesaw battle, a big fight in Thailand about who runs the country, who has power, who rules, and how. And, in your country, normally the people do. People go to vote, Americans go to vote, and they vote for certain parties, certain president, and that's how the system works. In Thailand, when this happens, people went to vote. They voted for the Thaksin party called Thai Rak Thai Party. And Thaksin came in with this innovative policy platform to transform Thailand, to make Thailand more democratic, more innovative. He had a microcredit scheme, debt suspension, universal health care. So he really became popular with the masses. But the masses traditionally were loyal to the monarchy, to the king, not to any politician. So this became a chasm, a kind of a point of contention, the fault line, whether Thailand is run and ruled by the elites of the monarchy, the military, judiciary, bureaucracy, or the elites from the political parties, the constitution, the parliament, driven by the electorate. And really, this is the last 25 years of Thai politics, the Thai drama. It's about who gets to run the country and how, who has the power, who follows it.
So what's so interesting, Dr. Thitinan, is that Thaksin Shinawatra was driven from power, found guilty of corruption and other things, and exiled. And then, as you said, the various power groups in Thailand have been fighting for control ever since. But now we have Thaksin's, I guess it's his daughter, who's back as prime minister in a large coalition, as I understand. So is this an indicator that the fighting is over, that all the establishment groups have agreed to work together?
That's a very good question, because it allows us to fast forward to the present. We've compressed the Thai political history of the last 25 years, the last 100 years really, into just a few minutes. But now we can fast forward to what's happening today. So the structure of it, Ambassador, the structure of the Thai politics is still the same. It's about who calls the shots. And the people that call the shots are still the military, the monarchy, the judiciary, bureaucracy. Now, their threat, their existential threat has changed, has shifted. It's no longer Thaksin Shinawatra and his political party machine, but it's now a new political party, driven by young people, younger generations, and they want reform of the monarchy. And this party initially was called a Future Forward Party. It's about future. It's about forward, future forward. But then in 2019, it came out from nowhere, and it became the third largest winning party, right? 6.3 million votes. A lot of young people, very young base. These young people, basically, they saw that Thailand was going nowhere. They saw that their future was being squandered by these elites infighting with the 2 military coups, with the judicial interventions. So the young party, they did really well, but then they were dissolved because they openly call for the reform of the military and the monarchy. Can you believe, from a military background, Ray, that Thailand still has conscription? We had it during the Cold War with communist expansionism, so understandable. But even today, people are still being conscripted. My students, for example. So, they want to reform the military, getting rid of the draft, reform the monarchy, make it more accountable, especially the budget, and, making the bureaucracy more decentralized. So this party was dissolved summarily in 2020 in February. And a lot of the young base, they protested in 2020. So if you look back at the news, the latest protest Thailand had was this, the young people protesting against the military, the monarchy, and they were suppressed. And then, they went away. Some of them were arrested. They're still in jail, some of them, by the way, languishing in jail, including the leader of it. And the lèse majesté law was used as the legal instrument. So if you call for the reform of the...
Just very quickly, lèse majesté, go ahead and would you define that for our audience, please?
It's a royal defamation law. So, we know about defamation law that, you cannot insult. I cannot insult you unfairly without basis, without some evidence, right? But the royal defamation means you cannot criticize the monarchy, the king, the queen, the heir apparent or the regent in any way, because that can be liable for lawsuit, lèse majesté charge. And in Thailand, anyone can charge anyone, which means that anyone can just go to the police station right now and say that person X, person Y says something bad about the king. And the police would feel obliged to pursue the case. And eventually, in most of the cases, charges ends up in court, and the conviction rate is over 90%. And one charge, one conviction comes with a jail sentence of 3 to 15 years, minimum of 3. So, there's been cases of people being jailed for hundreds of years, over 100 years, if you can believe it, because they have multiple charges. So the lèse majesté law became the legal instrument to keep the protests down, to keep dissent out and suppressed. In 2020, these young people got arrested, some of them, then they went away. And then 2023, they formed a new party by that time. They won the election, right? So they became the new threat, Ambassador. They became the new threat because they want to reform the monarchy. the military, right? So the monarchy and military, the people who call the shots, they made a deal with Thaksin Shinawatra and his political party machine. They allow him to come back to Thailand, reduce his jail sentence, and then allow him to run the government behind his daughter, who is the prime minister, Paetongtarn Shinawatra. So it's a kind of a divide and rule maneuver, right? So initially, Thaksin became popular. He was popular with the masses. He became a threat because the masses were supposed to be loyal to the monarch. So that threat was, taken care of, was addressed with the coup in 2006. But Thaksin came back through his sister in 2011 election. Well, they had another coup in 2014. Along the way, they had judicial dissolutions of the winning parties. But now there's a new threat. These young people, the young party, Future Forward, was dissolved. They came up with the Move Forward, won the election. So they dissolved Move Forward in August 2023. 2024 took a year. And then they allowed Thaksin to run the government behind Pheu Thai party with his daughter in the front. But in fact, he's running the show in the back. And, the military and monarchy, they made a deal with him, a pact that, he can run the country, but he has to keep the Move Forward threat away and marginalize.
So let me ask you about that then. So here we are then, as I understand it, we have now sort of a two-way divide with the traditional power centers of the monarchy and the military and the courts, joined by the ruling party, which the Pheu Thai party, and then the Move Forward party, which I think now is the People's Party, is sort of on the other side. How tenuous is right? So right now we're not hearing a lot about political upheaval in Thailand. It seems, at least from the outside in, it seems to have calmed down. Are things going to sort of stay calm until the next election? And what are the prospects of now this People's Party, this young party? As I understand it, there are an awful lot of young people in Thailand, and is that a growing force? And what are we looking ahead to? What's your best estimate?
That's really the essential penultimate question. What will happen next after all this water under the bridge, all this drama over the last 25 years? And it's really I have two minds about it. I mean, on the one hand, I think that we will have some stability. Thaksin has a lot of old enemies from the establishment. This used to be called the yellow shirts, right? They used to wear yellow. They protested against him, and they actually paved the way for his overthrow, his sister's overthrow, and 2 military coups. And then his supporters became the red shirts. And it was all, if you look back in the news 10, 15 years ago, it's all yellow versus red. But now with the young people, the color for them is orange. And on the one hand, I think we'll see some semblance of stability, despite the fact that Thaksin has a lot of old enemies. They're making a lot of noises. They want to still overthrow him. But they don't have that establishment backing, because the established centers of power made a deal with Thaksin, right, to keep the Move Forward People's Party away. And therefore, that deal robs this anti-Thaksin columns of a royalist backing that they used to have to overthrow him. And therefore, I think that there will be some stability in this year, 2025, 2026, I think plausibly leading to the next election, because the military is not going to overthrow Thaksin in a coup, because they made a deal with Thaksin to run the country, but keep Move Forward away, keep People's Party away, because the People's Party, that's the real deal. That's a real threat. So some stability. Now, what Thaksin is doing now, he's been giving speeches, and his old enemies still hate him. But I can see this year, next year, that Thailand will have a little bit of a stability, space to get things moving again. And we're beginning to see, for the first time in some years, I've been tracking this Thai politics for 25, 30, 35 years. And finally, there's a little bit of space for some forward movements. Thailand has some ambition again. It has a story to tell again. The Thai story, there was no narrative. But Thailand, you cannot have a narrative when you have so much political instability and turmoil. You have so much disruptions and turbulence. But now, they're looking at entertainment complex, legalizing the casinos. They want to get into the data centers, maybe even the back end of the semiconductors. Thailand missed out on a lot over the last 10 years, 15 years because of political instability. And also the military coup in 2014 was deeply damaging. So now I think that Thailand will see some forward movement, and Thaksin will be incentivized to get the country, the economy moving, because he needs to regain the base, the electoral basis that he lost to the People's Party in 2023 election. And the People's Party, they're still going strong. I see them around because a few of them are my former students, and they are biding their time. It's very hard to regroup under a new party. I mean, you get dissolved, but they've done it. The messaging is still the same. They want to reform the country. So I think this will come to a showdown in the next election. And that election, to your question, will be a kind of a reckoning. I mean, the establishment can play some dirty tricks again. I mean, they can always dissolve a party, right? Because the judiciary, the constitutional court especially, is appointed by the Senate. The Senate, in turn, is kind of under the control of pro-establishment political parties, especially the Phumjai Thai party. So basically, they have kind of locked in the Constitutional Court, the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Election Commission. If you look at a kind of a stadium, a sports game or something, a football match, you have the spectators, they're like the voters, right? But all the referees are on the side of the establishment. So they can always play some dirty tricks. So next election, I suspect that, it will not be straightforward. But they might have to do a lot of dirty tricks and might look, bad in the process, because the Move Forward base, now People's Party, is still very strong. Every year, 800,000 young people, become first-time voters. So we don't know this relatively quiet period, how the People's Party is, they're going door to door, they're still very bottom-up, they are organic. And if they succeed in winning hearts and minds through policies, through change, through a better future that they're promising, then they could win. If they win a simple majority in the next election, this will be a reckoning for Thailand, because the military
model. What we've learned from the U.S., Dr. Thitinan, is that in economics and economic security of the masses probably matters more than anything. Thailand, one of the Asian tigers, so-called, in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, as you indicated, has fallen back economically compared to peers like Vietnam, say. How do things look now going forward? The Thai auto industry, which is very important, apparently is under a lot of pressure. A lot of the semiconductor manufacturing, other high-tech manufacturing is also moving to other countries in ASEAN as opposed to Thailand. What do you see that gives hope that the economic fortunes will improve?
Thailand has a critical mass, I think. It also had a lot of foreign direct investment accumulated over the last 3-4 decades. So it's still a big draw. It's still a major production platform for a lot of companies, multinationals from the various countries. True that it has lost out over the last 10-15 years of turmoil, of political instability. But I think that it's not too late for Thailand to still recover and to regroup the economy. For example, I mean, now we have Chinese EV companies, electric vehicle companies investing in Thailand. And the Japanese haven't really left, but they're having some reservations about new investments. They are taking a pause. A lot of American companies still here. But yes, Vietnam has diverted a lot of its investments that could have gone to Thailand, Indonesia as well. But if you look at the map and supply chains, you look at the production networks, Thailand is still very much in the game. I mean, it was a matter of time. If it kept shooting itself in the foot, it would lose more and more, and its peer competitors would have gained more and more. And after so long, Thailand would be looking at very low value chain production, hospitality, labor-driven industries. But if Thailand, the Thai government can kind of arrest the rut and kind of regain some momentum, then I think that they can still recover enough to get the economy moving again. It will not be as dynamic as before because now public debt is higher, household debt is high. But, Thailand is a good market. I think it's still the main hub of mainland Southeast Asia and hub of Southeast Asia to an extent. So I think the government, all we need in Thailand is some stability, some policy directions. And I think that's we're seeing some of that now returning. So medium term, I think good prospects ahead, medium term.
Geopolitically, Thailand is an interesting place. Of course, it has a long-standing security relationship with the United States, but when compared to the other treaty allies of the U.S., it seems to stand apart. It doesn't sort of line up with where the political positions of, say, South Korea, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines are. It seems to do much more of a balancing act between the U.S. and China. How would you characterize the security relationship with the United States and the geopolitical situation that Thailand finds itself in?
Thailand, that's among the U.S. treaty allies in Asia. Thailand has been the lowest, least performing. In fact, functionally, I think the U.S., Vietnam, Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, or U.S. Singapore perform better than Thailand as a treaty ally. But this is a direct correlation, direct function of the military coups. The political instability in Thailand made Thailand more autocratic. And, autocratic Thailand with a military government, military junta, is not going to be good for the U.S.-Thai relations, because the U.S., Washington, will feel obliged to impose certain sanctions, or to at least express some reservations, some concerns, some criticisms. And the royalist conservatives, at least in Thailand, don't like that. And therefore, there's been some estrangement, some alienation between the U.S. and Thailand. But when we have elected governments, like under Yingluck, Thaksin's sister, in 2011 to 2014 before the coup, Thai-U.S. relations were kind of realigned again. There was a 2012 joint vision statement, for example. Or if you go back further, in 2003, Thaksin and President George W. Bush realigned Thai-U.S. relations in 2003, and Thailand joined the war on terror. Thailand became a major non-NATO ally. But now, at this time now, with this elected government, I think there will be some realignment again. So there's a correlation, between a kind of government that Bangkok has. If it's the elected government, there's more space for the U.S.-Thai treaty alliance. And I think we'll see that. This means that Thailand does not have to cater to China as much with the elected government. And we already have seen that on the ground. Since the election in May 2023, and, we've had a lot of up and down. We had a prime minister who was ousted. But even then, after the election, we see that Thailand's geostrategic balancing was more autonomous. It was not as beholden to China. If you look at the coup in 2006, especially 2014, so from 14 to 19, Thailand moved closer to China because it didn't have audience and accommodations and recognition with the EU, with the EU countries, with the US, with Japan and other countries, the democratic countries, democracies. But now with the elected government, I think Thailand now is more balanced, and it can also have its own autonomy about navigating the rough and tumble geostrategic arena. And so I think it's very much this, spectrum, autocracy, democracy is consequential. And Thailand stays on the democracy side more. It has more autonomy to navigate its own path moving forward.
Well, it'll be interesting with our new government here. Chances are focus on democracy and human rights will be less. On the other hand, focus on spending of GDP on defense, on being a good ally, and especially on the trade balance. And of course, Thailand has quite an enormous trade surplus with the United States. So you have a guess on how this relationship is going to go.
The trade surplus that we have, Thailand has with the U.S. is about 40 billion. Vietnam is a country that's really under the gun in terms of trade surplus. It's about 120 billion. But I think also the key is that, when President Trump finished his first term, Thailand's trade surplus is about 26. So it hasn't gone up that much, but Vietnam has more than doubled over the last 4 years. This is a time, by the way, Thaksin, for all his drawbacks and his, attributes, whatever you want to say about him, he is a little bit like President Donald Trump. I mean, he likes to be kind of transactional, and he likes to look at what Thailand's interest is and pursues that in deal-making ways. And I think if one-on-one in a room, Thai-U.S. relations can really be realigned. Thaksin did this in 2003, as I mentioned, with George W. Bush. I think he would be trying to do that with President Trump. What Thailand can bring to the table at this time may be different, maybe less. In 2003, Thailand had more leverage. Now in 2025, a bit less leverage, but still maybe still enough to have some kind of a understanding with President Trump. This is a time where Thailand really needs to revitalize the U.S.-Thai treaty alliance, because if the U.S. is going to pursue this, tariffs and all this mercantilist, protectionist economic nationalism, also on technology, proprietary technology, AI development, this is a time when you need to be on the good side of the U.S., and Thailand had a treaty alliance to work with. And I think also Thaksin Trump would be very natural partners. At the same time, Thailand will also need to, stay on side with China. China, interesting, we've had very close, warm relations with China for centuries. For the U.S., Thailand is the oldest ally in Asia. So having both sides, but also having Japan, which is a bit out of commission, a bit weak at this time. I think Japan, but also Korea, problematic South Korea at this time. But, there's a third column that Thailand wants to also work on and be with. And the third country is the other middle powers, not just U.S. and China. But at this time, I think that the U.S.-Thai treaty alliance is very much in play, and Thailand will be looking at that.
You mentioned Thailand's relationship with China, and of course, recently we've been reading these stories about this, at least a rumor, if not sure how much is behind it, about the idea that Thailand would basically send a bunch of the Uyghur refugees back to China. First of all, what do you think is behind that? Is this, is there something behind that? Is this a decision by, the senior levels of the Thai government that they have to do something for Beijing? Are they getting pressure to do something or else? Or maybe there's just less here than meets the eye, that something happened and it got blown out of proportion?
So the Uyghurs is a good case to illustrate Thailand's dilemma, Thailand's imperative to navigate between the U.S. and China. So Uyghurs are this persecuted minority Muslim from Xinjiang region in China, and they took refuge in Thailand. And this has been going on for years, like almost 15 years. And, some of them have been resettled in third countries. Some of them have been sent back to China, especially after the military coup in 2014. The military government was very accommodating to China, sent back some Uyghurs to their fate. If the Uyghurs go back to China, they're not going to be well treated, for sure, because they're considered by the Chinese government as rebels, as dissidents who fled the country. And at the same time, if Thailand doesn't send them back to China, China is not pleased. China has been pressuring Thailand. So I think the second Trump administration and what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said about the Uyghurs and about Thailand was really the first test of the Thai-U.S. treaty alliance under the Trump second administration. Secretary Rubio said that Thailand as a treaty ally would know better, would not send these Uyghurs to their misfortune, to their fate, and to be mistreated in China. This puts a lot of pressure on Thailand. At the same time, China also pressures Thailand to send them back. But this allows Thailand to also consider sending them to third countries or keeping them in Thailand away from harm's way, right? From harm's way in China. So it basically, this is a test, and the outcome will be indicative of Thai-U.S. relations on Thailand's diplomatic finesse. And I suspect that the Thai government will find quiet ways to send them to third countries or to keep them here, and certainly not send them back to harm's way in China.
Well, Thailand has a long history of diplomatic finesse, which we all admire. But the other place you're trying to finesse in Thailand is the issue in Myanmar. And you're taking a lot of refugees there, which must be a strain on the economy, especially on the border regions. Thailand has tried to negotiate or moderate some sort of settlement. What is Thailand doing now regarding Myanmar?
Well, the Thai government under the Pheu Thai party, under Thaksin Paetongtarn, it's really Thaksin, running the show in the back. Paetongtarn is in the front as the face of the government. Thaksin has been appointed as an advisor to Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia. Malaysia is the chair of ASEAN this year, so I think they go way back. Thaksin is a wily veteran politician, so it's Anwar, Prime Minister Anwar, and I think PM Anwar wants to see some kind of a breakthrough, wants to host and organize some kind of a breakthrough on Myanmar. Myanmar has been stuck for 4 years now. There was a military coup in February 2021. And, since then, it's been a civil war. It's been violent. It's been dark. And the military actually is losing ground. It's losing territory. So a resistance coalition, comprising a bunch of ethnic armies, but led now by the Arakan Army, together with the National Unity Government and the People's Defense Force units on the ground, the PDF units, these are, kind of a very decentralized youth, a ragtag youth militias in different townships, attacking soldiers, policemen, and also government leaders. So they're very anti-military, but they're armed, basic, very light weapons. But they're the military arm of the National Unity Government. This is kind of like a government in exile in a way. And the NUG, National Unity Government, is gaining more credibility. But recently, in the last 6 months, the ethnic armies have gained the upper hand. And the ethnic armies, some of them are answerable to China, such as the Kachin, KIO, and then the Kachin Independent Army, the Shan armies in the Shan state. They are, and the Golkang, the Wa. The Chinese, you can imagine, have a lot of interest in Myanmar. They have mining, they have workers there, they have gas pipeline, they have a port. So the Chinese has been more assertive now. They want to organize some kind of election in order to see a breakthrough. I mean, the stalemate is untenable, which means that the military is going to lose more and more territory. The ethnic army is going to win more and more territory. NUG at this time, I think, is a little bit maybe inert, maybe a bit weak. They're not assertive, but they're still recognized by the resistance coalition stakeholders on the ground. So Myanmar people are, around the country, across the country, that have revolted against the military regime. They're still very much supportive of the NUG because the NUG is the remnant.
The NUG being the National Unity Government.
The National Unity Government is basically what's left of the civilian government before the coup. Now, for Thailand, it wants to play a role in ASEAN. It wants to play a role because Thailand has the longest border with Myanmar. And Myanmar, if we're not careful, if all of us not careful, Myanmar could end up as a kind of a balkanized country and a cesspool of drug production, transnational crimes, scam centers. A lot of bad news could come out of Myanmar and it could reach your shores. And certainly Thailand is next door neighbor, a long border, has a lot at stake, and it wants to see some kind of breakthrough. But they have to be careful. Anwar and Thaksin and the ASEAN leaders, they have a 5-point consensus. They want to broker some kind of a dialogue, but they have to include the NUG. They must not be partial to the SAC, the State Administration Council, which is the military government. If they make a deal with China, with the military government, at the expense of the ethnic armies, the NUG, we will see more civil war after any kind of breakthrough.
That's a very powerful way to end a very interesting conversation. Dr. Thitinan Pongsudhirak, I hope I got your name pretty close to correct. I am certainly not a Thai linguist. Where can people follow your work if they want to know more about your views on these things and just want to get more from your insight?
Well, Google, of course, but I have a lot of stuff on Google. I think I have some website at the Faculty of Political Science, Chulalongkorn University, or write to me, my surname @hotmail.com. Different outlets.
All right. Well, we'll put that in the show notes so that people can figure out how to spell that, because it is not a short name like Powell. So thank you again, Dr. Thitinan. We have really enjoyed this, and we hope to have you back. And our sponsor, as always, is Bauer Group Asia, a strategic advisory firm that specializes in the Indo-Pacific. Bauer Group applies unmatched expertise and experience to help clients navigate the world's most complex and dynamic markets like Thailand. Jim Caruso and, by the way, our guest today, Dr. Thitinan, are both senior advisors with Bauer Group. So you can visit them at BauerGroupAsia.com. So, Jim, complex indeed are Thai politics.
They're an ancient culture. Something important to keep in mind is when all of Southeast Asia was being colonized by the British and the French, Thailand stayed independent. Siam was independent of that actually because they are really, really good negotiators and diplomats. And they set the Brits and the French off against each other. So sometimes when I was in Bangkok at the embassy or back in Washington heading up the office down there, you have to remind people that Thailand is going to hedge always, and just accept that.
Yeah, I think that was something that struck me as we were talking, because he was talking about how, after the last coup, so the 2014 coup, the U.S. came down pretty hard on Thailand, and there's sort of a move away from the U.S. toward China a bit. And I think one of the things that probably is true of U.S. geopolitical thinking at this point is that with the competition with China, we can't be as sort of pure as the wind-driven snow as we'd like to be. We can't be kind of come down from the mountaintop and say, "Thou shalt not do these things. We're going to punish you. We're going to put on these." We would like to be able to think of ourselves as being the arbiters of how good democracy should run, good government should run, how people should do things. And that was maybe a luxury we had when it was more of a unipolar world.
A lot of times policy is not made by Congress, but is heavily influenced by Congress. And being for democracy is always a vote getter. So sometimes we at state would react.
And we do kind of like democracy. That is sort of...
We do, but it's as we know, even in our own history, it's not always a very straight line.
Exactly. All right, Jim, we need a good Thailand story.
All right, a good Thailand story.
And this one can't involve hair either on your head or your knuckles.
It involves hairy elephants. How's that?
All right.
So when I was in Thailand, we were trying to negotiate a free trade agreement. And it was a fraught, lengthy thing, which had a lot of domestic opposition in Thailand. Where that was stirred up from, I don't know. But anyway, there was an enormous demonstration in front of the U.S. Embassy against the free trade agreement. And leading the parade were people on elephants. So that's cool. And thousands of people, including people from a bra factory who were wearing their jobs. We finished this whole waving bras around their heads. So that was fun. Anyway, they had a petition they wanted to give us. So as the chief of the econ section at that point, I was charged with going to the crowd because they wouldn't come in.
Oh.
And we didn't want them in the embassy compound. I was charged to go out and receive the petition.
Wow.
And the way we did that,
Short straw.
well, so the regional security officer, the RSO, had me by the belt. His belt was held on by another guy, and they sort of put me out there holding to yank me back if anything got untoward.
Dead or
But
alive.
it's Thailand. No one was violent. Everyone's sort of happy. And so the leader of the demonstration said, I have this petition with our demands. I said, that's great. Why don't you come in for a cup of tea and we can talk about it? And he didn't know what to do. That's not the way I'm supposed to react. So he whispers to the guy on top of the elephant, who I guess was the big honcho. He says, no, just take the petition and go away. But that was my excitement. I did not get pulled back by the belt.
Or damaged by elephants.
No, the elephants were great.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been great. And our producer is great. He is Ian Ellis Jones. And he is the CEO and Grand Poobah of IEJ Media, who is our producer. And he also does some outstanding military and geopolitical graphics. And a lot of people follow him at Ian Ellis Jones on X. Of course, if you like this podcast, you'll want to check out more of them, like the one that we did last summer, all about Myanmar, which is a big topic today, with former Ambassador Scott Marcial. And if you want to learn more about that, you could do that at youtube.com @IP Podcast or via your favorite podcast streaming service, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, whatever. And finally, of course, you can follow us on X at Indo-Pac Podcast or on LinkedIn, where you can just search for the name of this podcast. Why should we care about the Indo-Pacific? And if you want to really get through to us because you have a really important question or a really important suggestion, you can email us, indopacificpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again to our friends at Bauer Group Asia. You can visit them at bauergroupasia.com. And until next time, this is us this time on Why Should We Care About the Indo-Pacific?